Hello class, we're in page 289 in our health book. Today we're going to learn whenever we are multiplying by 10, 100, and 1000. So we're actually going to learn how to multiply. So we have been multiplying several times by 10, by 100, by 1000, but some of us, we actually take a long time multiplying those three numbers. However, there are certain rules that you have to follow, and if you know those rules, it's probably going to take you seconds to multiply by 10, 100, and 1000. There are three rules that you have to know by memory. So rule number one, it says to multiply a whole number by 10, 100, or 1000, annex as many zeros to the whole number as in the power of 10. That means if you're multiplying by 10, all you have to do is annex 1 0 because 10 has how many zeros? 1 0. Same thing goes with 100. How many zeros do you have to annex whenever you're multiplying by 100? 2 zeros because 100 has 2 zeros. Let me go ahead and show you an example. 163 times 10. As you can see, there is a 1 0 in 10, and all I did, I wrote down 1, 6, and 3, 163, and I annexed 1 0. Let's go ahead and see times 100. 438 times 100. All I did right here, since 100 has 2 zeros, I annexed 2 zeros to 438. Let's look at the last one. 291 times 1000. 1000 has 3 zeros, so all I did was annex 3 zeros to 291. So it's very simple. If you know that rule, it's going to be super easy as you're multiplying by 10, 100, and 1000. Now the next rule is whenever you're multiplying a decimal to 10, 100, and 1000. So the rule states, to multiply a decimal by 10, 100, or 1000, move the decimal point to the right, not to the left, but to the right, as many places as there are zeros in the power of 10. Now let's see that number 10. So let's say we're multiplying a decimal by 10. 10 has how many zeros? 1 0. That means I'm going to move how many times my decimal point to the right? I'm going to move it 1 time because 10 has 1 0. If I'm multiplying a decimal by 100, all I have to do is move my decimal point to the right 2 times because 100 has 2 zeros. Let me go ahead and show you an example. I have 0.6163 times 10. 10 has 1 0. So all I did, I moved my decimal point 1 time to the right, and my final answer was 1.63. Moving on, 0.438 times 100. 100 has 2 zeros, so I'm going to move my decimal point to the right 2 times. 1 and 2. And my final answer is going to be 43.8. Moving on to the last one, we have 0.291 times 1000. 1000 has 3 zeros, so all I'm going to do is move my decimal point 3 times to the right. So I'm going to go to my decimal point. 1, 2, and 3 times to the right. And my final answer is going to be 291. If you want, you can add that decimal point. But at the end of a whole number, there is an imaginary decimal point. So you don't have to add that decimal point right there. But as you can see, if you know those rules, it's going to be super easy as you're multiplying by 10, 100, or 1000. A whole number, you just annex zeros. As you're multiplying a decimal, all you had to do was move your decimal point to the right, depending on how many zeros your power of 10 has. Moving on to the last rule, says, when multiplying a decimal by a power of 10, moving the decimal point and annexing zeros may be necessary. So may be necessary. Sometimes we will have to annex zeros. So let's going to look at this example. I'm going to multiply 0.3 times 10 times 100 and then times 1000. Let's going to look at right here. First off, 0.3 times 10. 10 has 1 0. All I have to do is move my decimal point one time to the right. And my final answer is 3. But let's multiply 0.3 times 100. 0.3 times 100, 100 has 2 zeros. So what I'm going to do, I am going to move my decimal point 2 times to the right. So start with my decimal point, and I move 1 and 2. As you can see, I do have an empty space right here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a 0 right there. So my final answer is 30. Let me go ahead and rewrite that. So 0.3 times 100, I have to move my decimal point 2 times to the right, 1 and 2. I do have an empty spot. In that empty spot, I'm going to annex a 0, so my final answer was 30. Let's go and look at the last one, 0.3 times 1,000. 1,000 has 3 zeros. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move the decimal point 3 times to the right this time, because 1,000 has 3 zeros. It's going to move that decimal point, 1, 2, and 3. As you can see, I do have 2 empty spaces. I'm going to annex 2 zeros in that empty space. And my final answer is 300. So sometimes as you're multiplying by 10, 100, and 1,000, annexing zeros may be necessary. That's going to be today's lesson, multiplying by 10, 100, and 1,000. Knowing those 3 rules is going to help you on your future test, maybe middle school as well and high school, because you're going to probably take seconds as you're multiplying by 10, 100, or 1,000. Today's classwork is going to be all page 289. After you're done, you're going to submit it through Class Dojo. Goodbye.